All right, welcome everybody to the podcast that is known as the Rainy Cajun. I'm your host, Jeremy Hubble, and today I am going to take you through this very first episode of the very first season, and we're calling it Legend. And the name is quite simple. We're going to give you a roadmap into what we're doing and the types of things we'll be talking about, and then have a little bit of fun, and then wrap it for today, and then we'll start talking about what we're going to do down the road. So, what is the podcast? I mean, what are we doing here? Quite simply, we're here to introduce you to products from Louisiana. Now, why Louisiana? Well, because I'm from Louisiana. And the other gentleman that's part of this podcast, Neil Robinson, who owns Alta's Cajun Grocery here in town, is also from Louisiana. So, what is here in town? Now, you're not going to believe this, but we're actually in the Seattle area. Now, even though we're from Louisiana, Neil and I both live in the Seattle area. And I'll have a little bit of history on both of us real shortly here. But what's in a name? Well, quite simply, there's a misnomer that all of Louisiana is Cajun. So we figured, let's just make it easy for people to remember that this is tailored towards Cajun, specifically Cajun food. Although we will probably talk about other products, food is where it's at. For us, it defines us. It defines the kinds of things that we take pride in from our hometown. And it really does make it, something unique and special in this area. So the podcast was really designed to introduce people to these products, to the products that we've had access to for years and years. And we're finally bringing them up collectively at the Cajun grocery store known as Alta's. And that is in Kent, Washington, which is about 15 minutes south of Seattle. And I have the studio, which is about 15 minutes due east of Seattle. So, and of course, that all depends on, this is Seattle. It depends on the time of day. It can take an hour at times with the way traffic is here. So, and then what about the rainy part? Again, people associate rain with Seattle, and they should, because it is pretty nasty here. As a matter of fact, I have a comparison chart which might actually surprise you. The rainfall in New Orleans is about 3/4 of an inch average more than Seattle Airport, SeaTac. So while Seattle has more gray days and generally miserable winter days, New Orleans actually has major rainfall. And for those of you who are from the area, you've been there in the summertime, it dumps. It dumps, and it dumps in real quickly. It's not this misty crap. It is dump on you, steam off the streets, especially in the summertime. And then, it goes away. So like that just went away. And so what we thought, hey, it all kind of blends together. Rainy, Cajun. All right. So that's what we're going to do. But a couple of things about who we're not. And I think it's really important to put a stake in the ground early on. We are not cooks by trade. Although we can cook up a mean pot of gumbo or even throw some stuff on the barbecue and have a great time with friends and family. We are by no means chefs, And therefore, this is not really a food show in the sense of being a cooking show. It is very much geared towards introducing you to foods, but it's not a cooking show. There's plenty of those on the internet, plenty of podcasts, and there's recipes out the yin yang that you can find anywhere if you're trying to cook things. We can all read directions on the packaging, right? And go, oh, okay, this is what I do to heat this up. We're going to let you use your creativity to take the products that we feature and make your own thing. That's the best part about this. And we're not really here to really pitch any one particular company's products over another. We will gladly talk about any product that we can get up here in volume so that you can have access to it. But we're not necessarily here to say, buy this or buy that. This is very much, we brought this up because we like this and we think you're going to like it too. Therefore, come on by and pick up a package of whatever it is that we're talking about. So a little bit about us. You can see I've got my street cred here. I am a diehard Saints fan. Born and raised in New Orleans, went to high school there, spent a few years going to college there. Then I decided to get a job in tech, moved out to the Bay Area, did that for about 20 years, during which time I moved up to the Seattle area because I was commuting to Tokyo at least once a month, if not more. So that's a little bit about my history, but there's a twist, and that is about 10 years ago, I started a brewery because why not blow your money that you made in tech on making beer? Who wouldn't want to do that? Well, in the face of a pandemic, I don't want to do that anymore. But one of the cool things about that particular company, which was called Go Brewing, I've actually got one of their. This is called a crowler. This is our logo and everything. We did this for 10 years, but the beer part quickly became the beer and food part. And so we tried to source as many ingredients as possible locally from Louisiana, all the way down to the bread for the po' boys, because I'm sorry, you can't replicate it up here in Seattle. You just can't. People have tried. It's, for whatever reason, I'm assuming that it has to do with things like water chemistry, but that's another subject altogether that we'll talk about sometime down the road. Pandemic hits, and then basically looking for something to do, and here I am. And during that process of having the brewery, I got to become good friends with Neil. And Neil has seen his business steadily grow over time to the point where he's bringing in truckloads worth of food from Louisiana almost weekly, completely inundating these companies down where we're from our hometown, with order requests that unfortunately they aren't prepared for, because you guys are insatiable when it comes to Cajun food, Cajun cooking, Southeast Louisiana cooking, Southern cooking. And he's got everything there that you could possibly need. And if he doesn't, he has no problem bringing it in as long as the manufacturer can deliver. So, the Neil's history will come up in future episodes, or we're going to probably end up redoing this episode before we launch. This is a pre-dress rehearsal. But one of the things that I did want to talk about, and I think it's important that we just set the ground rules for this moving forward, is that a lot of people. Let me switch over to the map real quick here. A lot of people, when they think of the Cajun country, they think here, Louisiana, right? And actually, if you were to lop off this entire upper portion of the boot, you would still retain the vast majority of the Cajun population in Louisiana, and the culture, because most of it occurs here in southern Louisiana. More specifically, what Neil has done with Alta's, and that's spelled Altha, is he has focused in on specifically this area of Louisiana. So this is what a lot of people would call Southeast Louisiana, and it goes from the Mississippi state line almost all the way over to the Texas state line, and you can see it slowly tapers down as it gets further and further away from New Orleans. So this is where the majority of the cooking and the food that we bring up comes from. Now, that's not to say that things won't come from other areas of the South. As a matter of fact, Neil has no problem bringing in products that are great, but maybe not necessarily made in this particular area. And that's fine. I mean, as long as it tastes good and it kind of matches with the theme, he's going to stick with it. So, but when we talk about Cajun, what we're really talking about is the area centered around Lafayette, Louisiana. Sometimes this area is called the Acadiana. Cajun actually refers to the people and, of course, the cooking, but Acadiana is the region where the vast majority of Cajun people still live to this day. So you can see that it's not a huge area, but it's still pretty sizable. And you know, this is Interstate 10 right here. This goes towards Baton Rouge. You cross over the basin, and then you're dropped down into basically Acadiana. And as I mentioned, it's centered around Lafayette, but some of the products that you'll get a chance to experience are from Breaux Bridge, from Scott, and from other areas in Acadiana. So you've got, a matter of fact, Opelousas right here towards the top. That's where one of the products that I have with me today is from. And let me see, I'll go back to me. And does anybody know what I'm going to pull up? Tony Chachere's. This is kind of like the seasonal of the South, specifically Cajun food from Opelousas. This stuff is amazing. It is. It should be in everybody's house, way over like a generic type of, Cajun seasoning. Matter of fact, if you have a generic Cajun seasoning that was made somewhere outside of Louisiana, do what I do. Chuck it. Get rid of it. It's garbage. There's so many other great options out there. There's no reason to have that crap inside your pantry. So we're going to focus on some great seasoning and spices and sauces and whatnot during the course of this podcast. But man, get yourself some of this stuff. You can put it on pretty much anything. Is so good. So good. I remember doing this as a kid. Probably why I have salt or sodium issues right now. But we're gonna focus on a lot of these unique products. And oh wow, that's got some kick to it. Forgot about that. Okay, back to the previously scheduled program. So what I want to keep this relatively short. We're at 15 minutes right now. This is like take number 100,001. I don't know. I've lost track. I don't think the little clapper thing that we have even goes that high. So We don't have one of those. I'm just joking. But I did want to talk about what's in it for you besides great food. I mean, that's a given. What's in it for you? And this is something that Neil and I have kicked around ideas on, and I think what we're going to do is hopefully weekly, every Friday, we'll talk about a new product or a product that he'd like to highlight that's in the store. And what's in it for you is that we will offer at the end of every episode a special discount code that you can take a snapshot of on your phone, bring it to the store, and get your discount on whatever product it is. Now, if you've ever been to Alta's, you know that he already has a pretty challenging time keeping things in stock. And it's not necessarily his fault. Matter of fact, it's not his fault. It's not Alta's fault at all. It is the manufacturers down in Louisiana just sort of like, they don't know what to do with all this demand up here. And so that's our problem. We'll figure it out. But this is going to be one of those stations where you're definitely going to want to like it, and you're definitely going to want to subscribe. And I don't know if I'm getting those crisscrossed or not, whatever. Because all the information that we provide will be very timely and limited in nature. Yeah, the podcast will stay up. I mean, no matter what. But the discount codes that we present at the end of the podcast are only good for a set period of time, and then more than likely it'll be about a week. So if you've got grocery shopping to do, be sure to look at this podcast and see what's new, and hopefully you can score some great discounts on things, and who knows what else we can do with it. I plan on visiting Neil at the store as frequently as possible, and we'd love to be able to host some shows remotely at the store so that you can meet both of us, and at the same time we may even have you sit down and give us your opinion on the food that we're bringing in. I think it's important that we hear from you just as much as you hear from us. So we'll use social media. We're going to publish everything on YouTube for now. You will see some postings to Facebook as we slowly ease into the format, but this is how we're going to do things. And we'll use the various tools that are available to us to interact with you. And feel free to ask questions online. We can't guarantee that we'll have an answer for everything. And I know one of the first questions that's going to come up is, well, I don't live in Seattle. How do I get this stuff? Trust me, we're working on it. But in the meantime, for those of you that are around the region, and when I say region, basically from Southern Oregon all the way up to, I think Neil had some people visiting from Alaska last week. That's pretty cool to have that many people that have access to this stuff. So we'll reach out that way, and you reach out to us. Now remember, Cajun, as it's defined, it is a mixture. It is actually, I would argue, is the first real fusion food of the United States. You've got the French Canadians that got kicked out of Canada. You have the Spanish that settled the area. And of course, you had the indigenous people who taught the various settlers how to live off the land. So there's something to be said for the type of cooking that we're going to be, or the food that we're going to be highlighting here, because I think that it is very unique. And I'm sorry, if you start calling something fusion, you are lazy. This is fusion food, not some upscale place in New York or wherever. that is, blending all these different things. This is the original fusion. And this is not because they ran out or they got some specials on some food. This is because they had to work off the land, and everybody brought a little bit of a piece of their culture, French too, to this region. And so what you're about to experience through this podcast is a truly unique blend of cultures that is expressed through food. And it's super cool. It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to wrap it here because we're at a little over 20 minutes. And I'm going to go through and review it, make sure I didn't make any goof ups or major goof ups. And, we'll see you on the next show. But keep in mind, again, this was the first show. So there's going to be a little, some technical issues from time to time that we have to work through. Give us feedback. Let us know how you're seeing this, how it sounds, and we'll continue to make improvements. Until next time, enjoy the food that you got around you and the people as well, and we'll see you on the flip. Take care.